Namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sree Iyer. Today I have the pleasure of company of Pandit Satish Kumar Sharma ji, and we are going to talk about the recent happenings at Oxford. Is Oxford unsafe for Hindus? That's the impression one would get by looking at the recent happenings at the Oxford Student Union elections. And to know more about this, let us join Pandit Satish Kumar Sharma ji. Pandit ji, what is the reason for all this vitriol being poured on one individual who ended up becoming the president of the Students' Union?
Yes, you're absolutely right. The news has now gone global in this day and age. It's very easy and simple for an event to occur and to become the topic of conversation, both in the US but also in India. And this particular incident, it strikes a chord with many Sanatanis, many Hindus. So yes, Oxford University is in the news again for the wrong reasons. Before going into it, I'd just like to sort of set the context a little. You know, Oxford is it's a university of two halves. So we have one half, which is the traditional STEM sciences, the mathematicians, the engineering, etc. And the people who I've encountered in that, and I've encountered many faculty and students, they are, as you would expect, they're introspective, they're very gentle, by and large, wonderful human beings, devoted to the pursuit and acquisition of knowledge about the world that we live in. Then there is the other half, which is the social sciences. And I have to say that I seem to have detected a trend of some problem in the social sciences. There is a sector of the social sciences which seems to attract, and if not attract, certainly heighten the eccentricities and the emotional instabilities of particular types of individuals. And what we've had is a recent development which highlights that. So what you've heard and picked up is a tragic case. It's the case of a young Hindu girl from Karnataka who managed to pass her exams. Her family managed to save up enough money, get their life savings together, and she secured a place to do a master's at Oxford. She is from the engineering side of things. She's a mechanical engineer and is deeply involved in the physical sciences side of things. So she arrived at Oxford, and being at Oxford, very happy, first person in a family to have gone to a university of this caliber and level, very proud of her achievement, decided she wanted to get involved in the student life and get to know people. And so she got involved with the Oxford University Student Union. And there were elections. She presented her credentials, a manifesto, hopes and ambitions, and she got elected as the president of the Oxford University Students' Union, the first woman of Indian origin to have managed this. And not only has she managed it, she actually managed to secure more votes than any other president in history. I think her total was she secured almost 2/3 of the total number of votes, so a resounding success. Very happy, decided to celebrate it, started to publicize it, and began to attract, quite rightly, congratulations and appreciation from much of the student body. And that's where things turned sour. Then all of a sudden, a campaign seems to have started, and people started to trawl through her Instagram feed, going way back to, I think she was 17, pulling up pictures and interpreting them in a very unpleasant manner. And so a 17-year-old from a different country uses nuance differently, language means different things. And so it's quite simple and straightforward to pick an innocent post, to interpret it, and then to heap scorn on it and pour vitriol into it and then publicize it. And this cascaded. Within a couple of days, she was the target of such a malicious vitriolic hate campaign. There were allegations that she was Islamophobic. Every sort of phobia you can imagine was leveled at her. And poor girl, on her own, no family over here, no support network, under a COVID regime where she's confined to her home most of the time, she began to struggle. And as would happen with such a level of bullying, she eventually, after 2 days, I think, of having been elected, she felt under so much pressure that she resigned. Having resigned, she issued a letter of apology. And, one would have thought that people would have accepted it and done the gracious thing, but things escalated even further. And she felt she had no recourse other than to return home and try and find a bit of stability and a bit of safety again. And where where I found this particularly disappointing, we know that on occasion student societies and student politics can become very, very unpleasant. But the university has a duty of care. The colleges have a duty of care to safeguard and protect students. What really perturbed me was when I discovered that a member of faculty had actually decided to target her and vilify her. Now, this is a red flag. Faculty are supposed to operate in a different manner. Now, we know that faculty at Oxford University, especially those who are concerned with India, the former colony, the home of Sanatan Dharma, etc., there are a few people who seem to be slightly eccentric in their relationship with India, particularly. And they're the first to proliferate tropes and to heap scorn on ancient traditions. So this this gave a perfect example and a perfect opportunity for a number of people to vent their rage at India. And I have an example to share with you. So the news that's gone viral now is this particular news that Oxford University allowed Rashmi Samant to be bullied and then forced to resign by what seems to be a cabal of what are conventionally called left ecosystem students and faculty. I say what was an incredible achievement being celebrated all across the world, in India and in the UK amongst the Hindu community, suddenly turned into a toxic issue. And this is the young lady who then felt she had to leave. So I started to do a bit of research into where this could have come from, what would have caused such a vitriol, and also to try and find out the details of it. Here is something that I've managed to secure. So at Oxford University, there is a character called Dr. Abhijit Sarkar, and he is faculty. And looking at his credentials, it's quite remarkable. He seems to be a person who has achieved a great deal in his study. He has worked at King's College in the UK, University of Cambridge, University of Exeter, St Andrews. All of these are first-tier universities. And so he's got a great deal of academic ability, has written and produced work that his peers have approved of. And so it was a bit of a surprise that such an educated individual would target a lone, young, vulnerable woman on her own in a foreign country in this manner. Now, it's important to understand exactly what it was that he did. And so if I can just turn to this. This is a post that he posted about her. I was horrified. This post goes beyond. It breaks all of the boundaries and safety structures that have been put into place, the bullying, the anti-bullying policies, the anti-harassment policies, discrimination, hate speech, all of those things. And I'll just, if it's okay, I would just like to go quickly through what is an extraordinary post. So he highlights that after 2 days of being elected, a list of allegations of racism, xenophobia, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, making light of Hitler's genocides, transphobia. I don't think he's left anything out. This is a young woman. A young
He
woman
has
of
thrown the kitchen
22.
sink. He has
Oh,
thrown the kitchen sink at her.
it is extraordinary, right? And then he goes on to create a general trope. All of these are typical characteristics of far-right forces in India, so no surprise there. Then what he did is he referred to a photograph of her parents. And her parents, being Hindus, were celebrating, as most of India and most of the Hindus did around the world, the Supreme Court's decision, which said that the Ram Mandir was absolutely, it was justified to create the Ram Mandir in Ayodhya. that there was archaeological evidence, there was a consensus, and India had agreed that this should happen. So her family was celebrating the appearance of a Ram Mandir in Ayodhya after all these years. That photograph he then refers to not as a celebration, but he refers to it as they're celebrating the destruction of a mosque and the establishment of a Hindu temple on the site. Not satisfied with that, he then refers to her institution, where she came from, Manipal Institute of Technology, MIT, and their website has got a photograph of Prime Minister Modi. And so obviously that institution is now capable of being tarnished because obviously they're terrible right-wing people. And then he refers to the fact that she's come from Karnataka. It's not her fault she was born there, it wasn't choice. And he refers to the whole state as a bastion of Islamophobic far-right forces. Not satisfied with denigrating the state of her birth, he moves on to her campaign. Now, I've spoken with Rashmi just to make sure that she was okay and to find out whether she needed any support and just to give her a bit of pastoral care and support. She spent the princely sum of less than £50 on her election campaign. The limit is £60, okay? And yet he finds even fault with that. Her campaign spent unprecedented amounts of money for a student election. Of course, who funded it? Indians can guess. This is a classic hit job, isn't it? This is how you target somebody and you create such an unpleasant air around them. You defame them, you vilify them, you humiliate them. Then he talks a little bit further about far-right Desi forces, hate white people, caste-based tortures. Naturally, you have to bring caste into it when you want to denigrate a Hindu. And the most violent form of patriarchy. Hindutvadis, whenever there's a chance to destroy statues of Muslims or Christians or liberal Hindus, hope students can learn a lesson from this. And then the coup de grace at the end. He says, tells the news, for whatever reason, that Oxford students are still not ready for Sanatani president. Now, this is unacceptable.
Sarji, I want to just focus here. I'm trying to understand and absorb this. That statement that Oxford students are still not ready for Sanatani president. If I do a replace of Sanatani with another word such as Jewish or Muslim or transgender or even a Christian, would that not be transgression of law?
It is, and as far as I'm concerned, this is hate speech. There is no doubt about it. It's hate speech. It's targeting an individual on the basis of their religion. And religion is one of the protected characteristics in the equality legislation. We have an Equalities Act 2010, which specifically says that you are not permitted to discriminate against somebody or to harm somebody in this manner on the basis of their religion. So that last sentence is a clear statement which it's denigrating Hindu people.
Panditji, if I were the Vice Chancellor of Oxford, as a pure capitalist from the United States, from across the pond, I would say such people are bad for business.
Well, I would go further. Such people are actually, as far as I'm concerned, a danger to the safety and well-being of vulnerable students. When a student comes from overseas, their welfare is entrusted to faculty. And for a member of the faculty who's engaged in teaching, who's engaged in research, who's engaged in guiding students, it's a horrific set of statements to make. It is. I would say that this is hate speech.
And she's now back in India. I mean, this is emergency travel, and not many international flights are still not allowed into India till the 31st of March. So this must have been some sort of an emergency flight that she took, perhaps at her own expense, because somebody is very, like you said, the family spent their life savings to try and get her into Oxford. It's a prestigious school, and now she's back there. What is she contemplating? I mean, she still needs to get her master's degree, right?
Yes, and we're trying to support her to come to a state of mind and a confident state of mind where she feels she can come back and continue. But as I mentioned, her achievement in securing a place at Oxford and then being elected was, it brought her into the limelight of the media. So the media's attention was on her anyway. Then all of a sudden, somebody is publicizing and making viral photographs of her parents. And her parents are then becoming the subject of scrutiny. And you can imagine a small traditional family suddenly thinking, what is going on here? Why is our daughter being targeted? And why on earth would somebody drag up photographs from Instagram pages? Why on earth would somebody take objection to us celebrating a Supreme Court decision? So they were also quite distressed. And so I think she felt that she needed to go back and just to find a bit of peace, tranquility, and to come out of the eye of this hate storm that had been cultivated and directed at her. This is not actually the first time this has happened. This has happened before, and in fact, I'm aware of 3 events where this has happened before. So we do need to start to make inquiries as to why this is continuously happening at Oxford.
Now that you mention it, Panditji, a few years ago, Dr. Subramanian Swamy was prevented from giving a talk at the Oxford campus, isn't it?
That's correct. If I recall, he was going to be doing a talk at Oxford. We'd organised this, and the talk was going to be held. It was the key factor was that this talk was going to be held several days just before the National Herald case started. And
Uh,
so I
you know,
suspect that had something to do with an ecosystem.
in the previous case, when Dr. Swamy was prevented, was it the same individual as this one, the Professor Sarkar, or was it somebody else, sir?
No, it was somebody else. It was actually a group of other students and postdoctoral students and postgraduate students.
Mm.
And a little bit of research was done at the time by members of the IT cells. And it was established that there was a nexus, there were connections between the individuals in Oxford who were objecting and members of the Congress Party's IT and PR team. So there's obviously connections there, and they felt sufficiently threatened that they tried to deplatform Dr. Swamy. Now, that was the first time that we had seen students engaging in vilification, engaging in unpleasant communications and harassment and bullying. But there was a more recent incident as well. And in that incident, we had arranged for our Rajiv Malhotraji, who had done a lot of work on the colonization of academia and decolonizing it. And a wonderful group of students at Oxford had said they wanted to meet and speak with him and to have an opportunity to question him on his thesis, his proposal. And so we arranged everything. Only a matter of days before the event, 3 days I think it was before the event was going to happen, out they crawled from underneath the stones. There is a particular type of creature who emerges in order to inject venom into otherwise very positive events. And so on that time, an individual emerged, and in fact, we have, and still have on file copies of the threatening notes that he sent to undergraduates. So at that time, it was a gentleman called Udit Bhatia, who is also an academic at Oxford University. And the threats that he made to a humble, relatively junior undergraduate were extremely unpleasant. There were threats to publicize on a global scale the people who he associated with. And eventually, that poor gentleman, he had to resign also from his position as the president of the Oxford India Society. And at that time, we tried to contact this individual, but he disappeared from his Twitter account was suspended, his Facebook page was blocked, etc., etc. So it was the same nastiness, the same unpleasantness. Now, what I'd like to do is just briefly to draw your attention. The Oxford Code of Conduct is very clear. Bullying is a form of harassment, and it can be characterized as offensive, intimidating, malicious, or insulting behavior or misuse of power through means intended to undermine, humiliate, denigrate, or injure the recipient. Now, this is clearly what has been done to Rashmi Samant in this case. And so I'm in conversation with her. We've had discussions. I've had discussions with members of the faculty. And there is, I feel that there is a disciplinary process that needs to be proceeded with, and not only a disciplinary process within. I'm perfectly comfortable and confident that this is something that should be brought to the attention of the police. To harass a young lady on her own in a foreign country from a position of authority and power on the basis of her religion to such a degree that she had to leave the country, that is unacceptable. And I'm hoping that we will get a lot more support for this action, and indeed, we will get a very positive response from the authorities at Oxford University. It's not the manner in which students are supposed to be protected and nurtured and a safe space created for them.
And Panditji, what about this Sarkar fellow? I mean, is the department going to censor him, or at least? I mean, I think that was way out of line. He has no business talking about student union people and even students. This is just outrageous. I mean, it's not. It's bad for the business. That's what I'm trying to say. Anybody is going to think twice before applying for Oxford.
In any other position, the moment that message that he published became public knowledge, he should have been disciplined already. As I've said, that level of unpleasantness, that level of dehumanization, that level of hatred directed at a young individual who is there for study, for me, it's indication that there is an individual here who needs to be perhaps withdrawn from his office until a time when he's had an opportunity to reflect and indeed to perhaps recenter himself. Um, this is it's not acceptable at all, and I'm disappointed that we've not heard that this has actually been acted upon already. So yes, Dr. Abhijit Sarkar, it's unacceptable to be targeting innocent young girls, and to be using such vitriolic language is in itself an act of hate. And to accuse an innocent person of being hateful towards Jews, towards blacks, towards trans, towards Chinese, it's a nonsense if you don't recognize that what you're doing in that process is actually more hateful than the allegations that you're making. So there is an issue with this gentleman as far as I'm concerned, and I think it does need to be reviewed very, very quickly and promptly.
And I hope that the due process of fairness towards this student is carried out. I mean, if I were the Oxford University, I would probably write to her and bring her back, and perhaps even pay her airfare. I mean, these are students who are, they have gathered money literally, and who knows what kind of loans her parents had to take to put her through college. And this is really, really sad, very, very sad.
And students, foreign students, they pay 3 times the fees of a domestic student.
Oh, wow.
And this is quite literally a lifetime of saving by parents. And so let's see, we shall, as I say, the lawyers are being consulted at the moment. We've had an exchange with the police, and there is a meeting arranged next week. And so we will see what the outcome is. But we have enough people here in our community who are determined to make sure that she is safe, that she can return, and that she can conduct her studies in an environment which is genuinely safe, welcoming, comfortable, and secure. Be not this cloud above her, nor any fear when she returns.
And let's hope so. And I think she needs to stay strong. And Rashmi, I'm calling from United States here. We are with you. This is the battle of Dharma, and we will be here for you. We have your back. And as always, stay strong. And Panditji, thank you so much for taking up this cause. I mean, there are so many things that you're busy with, and for you to jump with both feet into this one is really commendable. I'm saying this, not for the fact that we are having a hangout, but it takes an enormous amount of effort. I mean, you've talked to so many different people. It has taken so many days before we said, okay, now we have all the facts of the case so that we can do a hangout on this. So, and I tip my hat to you, sir. And viewers, please, this is what PGurus is all about. We want to bring you the truth. And please subscribe to our channel. Forward this video to whoever you think should see this thing. It's not just Hindus. This is not just British Indians. This is everyone. There is a sense of fairness here. There is something here that, Oxford Union created history. And then is this how you try to, wipe all that off? And for what? So this is what it's really rankling me, Panditji, and let's hope that people see this thing for what it is, and be fair about this. And let's hope that she comes back and finishes her academics, and that's what is the most important thing. Let's hope that that happens. As always, thank you very much, sir. If you want to add something at the end, please feel free to do so.
No, not at all. I think you've summarized it beautifully there. She is our daughter, and this is not the manner in which we should allow our daughters to be treated. And the amount of effort that she's put in and her family have put in, that does have an incredible value. We're all hoping that she's going to go on to have a wonderful career, make an incredible contribution to society, and to look back on the time at Oxford and in the United Kingdom with fond memories and not memories of having been targeted in this manner. So we have no choice, we have no option but to accept this as an obligation, and let's see what we can do to put this right.
Thank you very much, sir, and namaskar, and see you again very soon.
Pranam.